Let me make one thing completely and unmistakably clear to you right now. Your thoughts are constructing your future one brick at a time, one day at a time, one decision at a time, and if you never take the time to learn how to think correctly, you will spend the rest of your life imprisoned inside walls that your own mind built around you. Success does not begin with action. It does not begin with action. It does not begin with resources or connections or the right timing. It begins with thought, controlled thought, focused thought, dominant thought that you have deliberately chosen and deliberately protected. If you master the discipline of correct thinking, nothing in this world will ever be permanently denied to you. If you ignore it, life will respond to your neglect with confusion, mediocrity, and a regret that compounds every passing year. You are exactly where you are right now in your life because of the specific way you have been thinking. Do not look around you for someone to hold responsible. Do not assign blame to your circumstances or your past. Do not defend what brought you here. You arrived at this point through the accumulated weight of your own thinking. That is the truth. And if you intend to move somewhere different, somewhere higher and stronger and more fully alive, you must begin by rewiring the single engine that drives everything in your life. You must rewire your mind. The vast majority of people walk through their entire lives in a state of mental hypnosis. Fear is what puts them there. Worry keeps them there. Distraction deepens the trance, and weakness makes it permanent. They think reactively. They allow the world outside them to dictate what they feel, what they do, and what they believe is possible. They outsource the direction of their own inner life to forces that have no investment in their success. But you are different. You are here because you are built for more than that. You are here to rise. And that rise begins with a decision to change your thinking in a way that is radical, deliberate, and absolutely uncompromising. You must learn to reject low-level thoughts the same way your body rejects poison. Doubt is not a harmless visitor. It is a virus that spreads through every layer of your ambition if you allow it to settle. Fear is not a reasonable warning system. It is a thief that robs you of your best possible future while convincing you the robbery is justified. Excuses are not explanations. They are anchors dragging the floor of a life that was meant to sail. You must eliminate all of them without negotiation. Understand clearly that correct thinking is not the same as positive thinking. Positive thinking is surface level. It is decorative. It feels good in the moment but carries no real force. Correct thinking is controlled. It is self-directed with iron will. It is thinking you have chosen, shaped, and refused to surrender. It means that you will not allow a single thought to occupy your mind unless it directly serves the goal you have committed your life to. It means rising each morning with a purpose so clearly defined that distraction has no opening to enter. It means visualizing your victory before the world has had any opportunity to see it. It means becoming so ruthless with your focus that nothing outside your mission is permitted to take root. Most people cannot hold genuine concentration for 5 consecutive minutes. The ones who win hold it for 5 consecutive years without wavering. That is the gap. That is the entire distance between those who struggle and those who conquer. And it is measured entirely in the quality of their thinking over time. Your thoughts function as instructions delivered directly to every part of who you are. Every time you think you cannot do something, your body and your behavior absorb that instruction and act accordingly. Every time you tell yourself that something is too hard, your progress accepts that verdict and slows in response. But the moment you begin thinking in the language of absolute commitment, telling yourself that you will, that you must, that it already belongs to you, you begin reprogramming your entire inner world from the foundations upward. Correct thinking does not wait for evidence to appear before it commits to the direction. Correct thinking creates the evidence. You do not require a fully visible path before you begin walking. You do not need the applause of others before you stay committed to the work. You do not need guarantees before you are willing to bet everything on yourself. All you require is a dominant and definite purpose held with enough mental discipline that you are incapable of thinking about anything else. with the same intensity. You came into this world already carrying the most powerful instrument that has ever existed, your mind. But no one placed a manual in your hands that taught you how to use it at the level it was designed to operate. So you drifted. You wished for things you did not pursue. You hesitated at doors you should have walked through without pausing. That pattern ends here. From this precise moment forward, you take full command of your thoughts. You train them the same way a professional trains for performance. You do not allow them to wander into territory that produces nothing of value. You do not feed them the junk of gossip and complaint and toxic comparison. You do not permit poisonous voices from the outside world to breach your mental gates. Your mind is a fortress of extraordinary value. Guard it as though your entire life depends on what happens inside its walls. Because your entire life does. Every great leader that has ever existed, every builder of lasting wealth, every person who moved the world in a direction it was not heading. What did they possess before? They possessed anything else, a thought, a burning and unrelenting belief in a vision. They refused to surrender regardless of what the world told them. They planted that thought inside their mind, and they protected it with the ferocity of someone who knew its full value, while everyone around them poured their mental energy into distraction and doubt and comparison. The truly great ones remained completely loyal to the vision, living inside their own minds. That is the lesson being placed before you today. Not simply how to think, but how to think correctly, with strength, with strategy, with a quality of thought that cannot be shaken by circumstance, the kind of thinking that constructs empires from absolutely nothing, the kind that transforms suffering into power and refuses to bow even when the world has delivered its worst. You do not require more luck than you currently have. You do not require more money, more connections, or more favorable conditions. What you require, above everything else, is more focus, more mental clarity, and a greater intensity of deliberately directed thought. The people who rise above what the world expected of them are not operating on luck. They are operating on laser-focused intention. Their thoughts function as weapons aimed at a specific target. Their vision is not a vague wish. It is a fire burning with such consistency that it illuminates everything they do. Their minds have been trained with the same seriousness that a professional athlete trains their body. You cannot continue affording the luxury of weak thinking. It has already taken enough from you. It has taken years you cannot recover. It has taken peace you could have been living in. It has taken greatness that was meant to be expressed through your life. You must choose right now to upgrade the software running your inner world. Delete every program that holds you in place. Install belief that has no ceiling. Install discipline that does not negotiate. Install the kind of courage that moves before it feels ready. Think thoughts that generate energy instead of consuming it. Think thoughts that produce commitment instead of hesitation. Think thoughts that make the very concept of failure impossible to sustain. When your thinking changes at a fundamental level, everything else in your life follows that change as though it had no choice but to obey. You begin to move through the world differently. You speak from a place of certainty that people can feel before you say a single word. You take risks that the old version of you would have walked away from, and you win because the truth is this: you are never more than one thought away from changing the entire trajectory of your life. One correct thought, one firm and unbreakable decision, one refusal to ever again allow your own mind to betray the mission you were placed on this earth to complete. Train your mind without mercy. Rule your world with the clarity that correct thinking produces, and nothing on this earth will be capable of stopping you. Every achievement that has ever been built by a human being began with disciplined thought, not hope drifting with no anchor, not luck appearing without cause, not wishing in the general direction of something better. The real power available to you lies in thought that has been trained with intention, sharpened through daily practice, and directed toward a specific purpose. Like a blade that knows exactly where it is, cutting undisciplined thinking does not simply produce mediocre results. It produces wasted years. It produces a life that never quite becomes what it was always capable of being. Scattered thinking produces scattered results with a consistency that cannot be argued with. But when your mind becomes focused, when it becomes ruthlessly and relentlessly focused on what you have committed yourself to, your life begins to respond to your command in ways that previously seemed beyond your reach. The world clears a path for the person who knows with complete certainty what they think, what they want, and what they absolutely refuse to tolerate in their mental space. Weak minds wander without purpose from one distraction to the next, losing ground with every step they take away from their mission. Strong minds conquer. They do not ask permission. They do not wait for confirmation. They move. And every person who has ever risen from complete obscurity to a position of lasting greatness did so by first mastering the world that exists within them. The mind is the battlefield on which every war that matters is ultimately decided. It is not the economy. It is not the competition. It is not the circumstances stacked against you. The real and determining battlefield is the inner landscape of your thinking. Undisciplined thought is weakness in its most consequential form. Most people walk through life with the gates of their mind completely open to every fear, every distraction, and every damaging opinion that comes their way. They are not thinking. They are absorbing whatever the environment chooses to deposit, and then they wonder why their lives are filled with confusion, with hesitation, and with a mediocrity that feels permanent but is entirely self-manufactured. They have surrendered control of the most powerful force they were ever given. But you have a different choice available to you. You become what you think about most often, and with the greatest emotional intensity. This is not a metaphor crafted to sound profound. It is not a suggestion offered as one of many possibilities. It is a law operating in your life right now, whether you acknowledge it or not. What you allow to occupy your mind repeatedly begins to shape your identity at a level deeper than conscious thought. It begins to direct your behavior from below the surface where you cannot easily observe it happening. It forms your attitudes, it constructs your beliefs, and eventually it becomes your entire reality. Your habits originate in the mind before they ever appear in your behavior. Your emotions begin as thoughts before they become feelings in your body. Every action you take traces its origin to a thought that preceded it. The dominant thought you hold, with the greatest consistency, is the invisible force sculpting the shape of everything you are becoming. It carves your confidence or carves away at it. It constructs your fears or it dismantles them. It builds patterns of success or cements patterns of failure. And the overwhelming majority of people never stop to examine what those dominant thoughts actually are. They absorb the noise of the world and allow it to become their identity without ever consciously choosing what they believe about themselves and what they believe is possible. You do not rise by accident or by the fortunate alignment of circumstances. You rise by repetition. The right thought, repeated consistently over time, builds the strongest version of you that your life has the capacity to produce. Every single time you say to yourself that you cannot do something, your nervous system registers that statement as a directive and organizes your behavior accordingly. Every time you allow your imagination to rehearse failure, your emotions follow that rehearsal into the physical experience of defeat before you have even attempted the thing you fear. Every time you play the disappointments of your past, you are actively constructing a smaller future with your own hands. But when you choose to reverse that pattern, when you begin to make the habitual language of your inner world reflect what you are capable of and committed to, you activate capacities that have been waiting dormant for exactly this kind of instruction. Your energy rises. Your posture reflects a new internal standard. Your focus sharpens with a precision that alters the quality of every decision you make. And your behavior begins to reflect the person who expects to win rather than the person who has been practicing expecting to lose. That is the quiet revolution that begins when you decide to take command of your thinking at the level it deserves. It is not instant. It does not announce itself with drama, but it is the most powerful shift available to any human being, because what you do every single day becomes who you are over time. And what you think every single day directly determines what you do. the truth that most people find uncomfortable too. Examine is that every failure in their experience began as a thought. Every moment of hesitation had a thought behind it. Every instance of playing smaller than they were, capable of started as a thought that was accepted without challenge. They did not fail because of what happened to them from the outside. They failed because of how they chose to interpret what happened inside the privacy of their own mind. And that means your freedom is not waiting somewhere out in the future. It is already within reach right now because the thinking that constructed the prison you currently inhabit can be replaced with thinking that opens every door you have been standing in front of without entering. The words you speak to yourself in the silence of your own mind carry more authority over the direction of your life than any outside opinion ever could. If the internal language you use is negative in its framing and hesitant in its tone and weak in its expectation, your life will match that language with depressing accuracy. But if you rebuild your internal language to be strong and focused and relentless in its expectation of your own capability, everything around you begins to shift in response to that new standard. Your mind was constructed to operate in obedience to your dominant thoughts. It does not evaluate whether those thoughts are serving your highest good before it begins following them. It follows them whether they build you or whether they destroy you. So you must choose with the seriousness that the stakes deserve. Thought is not a passive experience. It is the origin point of all transformation that has ever occurred in any human life. You must reprogram your mind the way a person rebuilds a structure that has been housing the wrong occupants for far too long. The process is mechanical in its nature, even though its effects feel profound. Just as a muscle responds to resistance by growing stronger through adaptation, your mindset grows stronger through adaptation. Your mindset grows stronger through the deliberate and repeated practice of choosing thoughts that align with strength rather than weakness. You must decide once and with finality which thoughts deserve to remain in your mental space and which ones must be removed immediately upon their arrival. This is not a gentle process. If you intend to win at the level you are capable of, you cannot afford to entertain even a moment of self-doubt. You cannot afford to live in the past through the mental replay of your failures. You cannot afford to rehearse your mistakes on a continuous loop, as though repetition will somehow produce a different emotional outcome. The cost of those thoughts is measured in potential permanently unrealized. They drain your available energy before it reaches the work that would actually change your life. They delay the mission you were built for, and over time they distort your identity until you are living as a smaller version of what you were always meant to be. You are not your past experiences. You are not the sum of your failures and disappointments. You are not the fear that visits you in the quiet moments before you are about to attempt something important. You are the thinker that exists behind all of those experiences, and you carry the full authority to choose again every single morning. You must rise each day and deliberately feed your mind the specific thoughts that match the purpose you have claimed as yours. You must speak power into your own inner world before the outside world has any opportunity to speak confusion into it. You must visualize the future you are committed to building until it becomes more real and more immediate to your senses than the distractions competing for your attention. Surround yourself mentally with thoughts that build your faith rather than feeding your fear, and never under any circumstance allow the noise generated by the world around you to grow louder than the voice inside you that says with full certainty that you were created for more than what you are currently settling for. If you allow that voice to go quiet, your dreams go quiet with it. But if you fuel it every day with deliberate and disciplined thought, if you protect it from every force that would diminish it, it will grow into something that no opposition can overcome. What you habitually think becomes what you unconsciously do, and what you unconsciously do and what you unconsciously do becomes what you inevitably achieve with the kind of consistency that the world will eventually be unable to ignore. That is that is the law, operating beneath the surface of every life. You do not have to force your way to success through sheer effort alone. You have to think in alignment with the success you are pursuing with enough consistency, enough intensity, and enough persistence that your habits and your behavior and your results have no choice but to catch up to where your thinking has already been living. The single reason that most people never reach the level their capability would otherwise permit is that they never claimed full ownership of their thought process. They allowed old programming installed by past failures and false beliefs and emotional wounds to run their inner world without ever challenging its authority. But you are not most people. You are here because the pattern must be broken, and breaking the pattern begins by breaking the thought that constructed it in the first place. You cannot afford to be casual with the management of your mind. The price of that casualness is a life that never becomes what it was capable of being. A weak mind will accept defeat before the contest has even started. It will manufacture excuses before it has even attempted to find solutions. It will accept limitations as permanent facts that were never real to begin with. But a strong mind operates by entirely different rules. A strong mind sees through the illusion of fear to the possibility that exists on the other side of it. A strong mind does not find its way around obstacles. It creates new paths that the obstacle never anticipated. A strong mind builds possibilities out of situations where the weak mind sees only walls. And that kind of mind is never simply born into the world already formed. It is built through the daily discipline of habitual thinking that consistently chooses strength over weakness, courage over doubt, clarity over confusion, and intention over reaction. Repetition of powerful thought changes the fundamental identity of a person. Repeat who you are until it becomes the only version of yourself you can recognize. Repeat what you believe until nothing in the world carries enough force to shake it. Repeat the vision of the future you are building until it becomes the only outcome your mind is capable of accepting. Your thinking is your foundation. It is your foundation. It is your most powerful weapon, and it is your direct responsibility to train it without compromise every single day. Correct thinking is not a passive state that a person drifts into when circumstances cooperate. It is deliberate, it is sharp, it is ruthlessly focused in a way that ordinary thinking simply is not. It does not drift from one idea to the next without purpose. It does not wait for the environment to become more favorable before it commits to a direction. It does not accommodate useless thought or entertain distractions that consume energy without returning value. It commands. It moves forward through noise, through fear, through the full force of emotional turbulence without losing its direction. This kind of thinking does not appear in a person by accident. It is forged through sustained mental discipline, through the repeated practice of purposeful focus, and through an unwavering commitment to a definite outcome. You do not stumble into clarity, you manufacture it by refusing to permit your mind to descend into weakness, even when weakness would be far easier to accept. Passive thinking is the default operating mode of the average person. All day long they consume what others have created, react to whatever arrives in their environment, and wait for someone or something to provide them with a sense of direction. But correct thinking operates on an entirely different engine. It decides what must happen and then organizes everything available to bring that outcome into existence. It does not search for reassurance from external sources before it commits to moving. It generates its own certainty from within. This level of mental power refuses to leave important outcomes to chance. It treats every thought that enters the mind like a soldier reporting for duty. Either that thought serves the mission it has been assigned to, or it is eliminated immediately. That is the fundamental difference between the people who exercise genuine control over their lives and the people who spend their entire lives being controlled by circumstances they never trained themselves to command. The one who masters thought masters everything else that follows. Wrong thinking builds invisible prisons. Correct thinking breaks every mental chain that has ever held you in place. These prisons are not constructed from steel or concrete. They are constructed from thoughts, specifically from thoughts that whisper to you without interruption that you cannot, that you are not yet ready, that you are not sufficient for the life you desire. Thoughts that run on a continuous loop, replaying failures from the past and projecting them onto every future attempt. These are the chains that hold an enormous number of genuinely capable people in place, even when no external force is preventing them from moving. They are not trapped by their circumstances. They are trapped by the way they have been trained to interpret those circumstances. It is not the external world that keeps people locked in place. It is the mental scripts they have been repeating for so long that those scripts now feel indistinguishable from reality itself. Scripts constructed from limitation, from guilt, from doubt, from fear, and from the accumulated weight of weakness accepted without challenge. You can be surrounded on every side by opportunity and still miss every piece of it if your thinking has been shaped by an identity of scarcity. You can be completely free to move in any direction and still remain paralyzed if the dominant thoughts operating inside you are governed by fear of what happens if you try and fall short. That is the particular and devastating power of wrong thinking. It convinces you to build a small and confined life even when a life of genuine magnitude is directly within your reach. These mental prisons are especially dangerous precisely because they feel familiar. They become so routine, so consistently present, that you eventually stop questioning their legitimacy. You begin to mistake the voice of fear for your own reasoned judgment. You confuse the caution bred by self-doubt with actual intelligence. You start describing your own self-limitation as humility. And quietly, without any dramatic announcement, you release your grip on your potential without ever fully realizing you have done so. That is the cruelest aspect of mental chains. They do not overpower you with force. They seduce you with comfort. They make the smaller life feel like the reasonable choice. And over time, you find yourself making consistently safe decisions that you did not actually choose, staying quiet in the moments that called for your voice, shrinking back in the moments that called for your voice, shrinking back in the moments that called for your presence, accepting a life you never deliberately selected, but slowly allowed yourself to settle into. Through the accumulation of unchallenged thought, correct thinking recognizes the truth even when the available evidence appears to contradict it. It sees clearly that the mind controls the body at a level deeper than conscious awareness, that belief shapes behavior more powerfully than circumstance does, and that every meaningful outcome in a human life begins as an internal declaration made before any external proof has been offered. Correct thinking sees through the architecture of the mental prison and replaces the old scripts running within it with something carrying far greater authority and power. It does not ask, "What if I fall short?" It asks, "What if I succeed at a level I have never previously attempted?" It does not say, "I have never done this before," as though that is a reason to stop. It says it is precisely the right time to begin. Correct thinking does not offer you soft encouragement. It challenges you. It exposes every lie you have been living under and then dares you with full force to rise above all of it. Most people dramatically underestimate the power they surrender to a single wrong thought. One idea accepted as true without examination can shape the direction of an entire decade. The thought that says, "I am not worthy of what I desire." The thought that says, "I have already missed the window of opportunity available to me." The thought that says, "People who come from where I come from do not reach the level I am aiming for." These are lies. They have been dressed up in the clothing of reasonable thinking. And until they are removed from the operating system of your mind, they quietly govern every choice you make, without your conscious permission. But the moment you begin to think correctly, the moment you start examining the source of those deeply held thoughts and questioning whether they actually reflect truth or simply reflect the fears of the peers of the people and experiences that installed them in you, you begin reclaiming the power that was always rightfully yours. You start to separate who you genuinely are from what you were conditioned to believe about yourself. You become free, not because anything in the world has changed around you, but because the world inside you has been deliberately rebuilt by your own hand. Correct thinking does not mean pretending that reality is different from what it actually is. It means choosing to interpret what is real through the lens of strength, rather than the lens of fear. It means selecting your response to what happens rather than simply reacting to it. It means setting your mind with full intention on what you are committed to creating, rather than on what you are afraid to face. This is intentional work. It is not easy, and it is not automatic. It is a discipline that demands your active participation every single day. But it is the only genuine path to breaking the cycle. You cannot escape a prison whose existence you have accepted as deserved. You cannot rise above a limitation you have convinced yourself to defend. And you cannot build a powerful and lasting life while the thoughts running your inner world are powerless in their nature and direction. Your thoughts are the architects of your destiny, operating at the deepest level available. If you do not take control of them with the seriousness that control requires, they will take control of you. And the life they construct will be built entirely from the raw material of everything you were afraid to challenge. You were not brought into this world to live in mental confinement of any kind. You were created with the full capacity to choose, to rise, and to think in ways that break every pattern that has ever held you. But that freedom does not arrive automatically. It must be claimed with full intention. You must decide right now that you will no longer give hospitality to any thought that reduces what you are capable of, that you will not serve the prison built from self-doubt, regret, shame, or fear, that every thought presenting itself for admission will be tested immediately and without mercy. Does this strengthen me or does it weaken me? Does this align with the future I am building or with the failure I am leaving behind? If it weakens, it is gone. If it builds, it earns its place. That is where transformation begins. That is the precise moment when the chains start breaking. Correct thinking is not arrogance. It is alignment. It is choosing to think in a way that reflects your purpose rather than your pain. It is the disciplined and daily decision to rewire your inner world until it reflects the life you actually intend to live rather than the one you have been tolerating by default. When your thinking changes at this level, your energy changes in response. When your energy changes, your actions follow, without requiring additional convincing. When your actions change with consistency, your results shift in ways that become impossible to ignore. But every link in that chain traces back to the moment you refused to allow wrong thinking to occupy your mind for one more moment without a challenge. There is a version of you living on the far side of every mental chain that has ever confined you. That version is not waiting for the perfect timing to arrive or for more favorable resources to appear. It is waiting for you to unlock it with a new and deliberate way of thinking. You do that by cutting off the supply of energy to every thought that has been keeping you operating below your capacity. You do it by feeding instead the thoughts that make you bold, clear, and genuinely dangerous to every limitation that has ever tried to define your ceiling. You are not trapped by your life. You are trapped by your interpretation of it, and the moment that becomes undeniably clear to you, the prison begins to dissolve. You are not poor in ability. You are not defeated in any permanent or meaningful sense. You are not broken beyond the capacity for full recovery and complete transformation. The real source of what feels like poverty, defeat, or brokenness in your life is not your circumstances. It is not your bank account balance. It is not the obstacles currently positioned in your path. It is the beliefs you have been holding for so long and with such consistency that they have begun to feel indistinguishable from fact. You have been conditioned through repetition to see scarcity where abundance exists and is available to you. You have been trained to focus on your limitations rather than on the boundless possibilities living beyond them. You have developed the habit of interpreting setbacks as permanent defeats rather than as the specific instructions. They are carrying about what the next attempt must do differently. Poverty is not simply the absence of money in your possession. In its deepest form, poverty is the absence of vision in your thinking. Defeat is not the direct result of failure encountered in the world. Defeat is what happens when you accept failure as the final definition of who you are. Brokenness is not the absence of strength. Brokenness is what occurs when belief in your own capacity has been abandoned. None of these are permanent conditions anchored in reality. All of them are reflections of thought, patterns that have not yet been examined, challenged, and replaced with something that actually serves the life you were built to inhabit. The moment you shift those patterns with deliberate and sustained intention, you shift the trajectory of your entire life. You have never been genuinely stuck. You have been mentally parked in a mindset that is keeping you smaller than you were assembled to be. Most people do not require a miracle from outside themselves to begin moving forward. They require a complete mental reset delivered from inside themselves. They are asking the universe for external breakthroughs while tolerating internal breakdowns that would cancel any breakthrough the moment it arrived. They wait and watch for opportunity while completely ignoring the mental conditioning that would determine whether they could actually use it when it appeared. They want the result of winning, without ever seriously confronting the internal cause of their losing. But life does not operate according to that arrangement. What you attract into your experience, what you create from what is available to you, what you ultimately build with the time and energy and capacity you have been given, all of it flows from the quality of your thinking. If your thinking tells you that you are powerless in the face of what is in front of you, you will behave in exact accordance with that narrative. If your thinking tells you that you do not deserve the success you desire, you will undermine your own efforts at the precise moments when they were about to produce the result you claimed to want. If your thinking has established a deep expectation of difficulty and disappointed condition of your life, you will unconsciously manufacture that reality again and again with impressive consistency. Your thinking is the silent architect whose influence on your outcomes operates below the level where most people ever think of the looks. But when you correct it, when you do the work of genuinely rewiring how you see yourself and what you believe is available and possible for you, everything in your environment begins shifting in response to that internal transformation. You have been deceived. You were told through 1,000 different channels that your circumstances have the authority to define your future, that your past carries a legal claim on your next chapter, that your failures constitute evidence that you are not the kind of person who reaches the level you are aiming for. These are lies of the most consequential kind. They have been delivered by a world that rewards compliance and conformity far more generously than it rewards the kind of individual confidence that refuses to accept a predetermined ceiling. But that story concludes the moment you decide it does. The moment you recognize with complete clarity that the real battle has never been out there in the world. It has always been internal. That your current situation is not your ceiling, but your starting point. That the struggles you are currently moving through are not evidence of your permanent limitations. They are signals arriving to tell you that the way you have been thinking needs to be upgraded. Your transformation does not begin with luck discovering you. It begins with truth confronting you. And the truth is this: you are not defeated, you are not defeated, you are dormant. The power you are looking for out in the world is not out there. It is buried beneath layers of mental noise that were installed in you by forces that never had your best interest as their primary concern. Begin stripping away with full determination every thought that has been telling you that you are not enough for the life you want. Remove every belief that has been suggesting that your best days are behind you rather than ahead. Destroy every lie that has been whispering that you are permanently stuck, fundamentally lost, or broken in a way that nothing can repair. You are not broken. Your thinking has been misaligned. Realign it with discipline and intention, and everything begins to move again. You must stop seeing yourself as a victim of the life you are living and start seeing yourself as the authority over the life you are building. You are not poor in ability. You have simply forgotten the authority that was always yours to exercise. You are not behind schedule. You have been distracted from the schedule that was always available to you. Reclaim your mental territory with full force. Stop allocating energy to the ideas that keep you small and redirect that energy entirely to the ones that expand what you believe is possible. Do this thought by thought, belief by belief, word by word spoken, in the privacy of your own inner world, because every thought you permit to take residence in your mind becomes a brick in the foundation of the future you are constructing. Every single day you are either building a prison or building a palace. The only material difference between those two outcomes is entirely contained in the thinking you choose to maintain. Success is created first in the mind, long before it becomes visible in the world around you. Everything you want, everything you have been chasing, everything you have been reaching toward begins as an image held in your mind with such clarity and such emotional intensity that the world surrounding you eventually has no choice but to conform to what your mind has already accepted as real. That image, that unshakable internal picture, that belief held with fire in its center is where success is, genuinely and originally born, not in the applause of crowds, not in the arrival of money, not in the recognition of people whose opinion you have been seeking. Long before the world claps for what you have built, you must already be seeing it with total conviction from inside yourself. Before a single other person believes in your direction, you must believe in your own capacity with such depth and consistency that the question of whether someone else believes becomes genuinely irrelevant to your momentum. Before any result has appeared in visible form, your mind must already be conditioned to expect that result as the natural and inevitable outcome of the thinking and the work you are committed to. The inner image always precedes the outer result. That is a law, not a philosophy. The blueprint precedes the building, the mental structure precedes the physical one, and if your inner world is scattered in its focus, or weak in its conviction, or filled with contradiction between what you say you want and what you actually believe is available to you, your outer world will mirror that internal condition with depressing fidelity. But the moment your mind becomes genuinely certain, the moment your thinking locks in with full conviction on what must be, your actions begin aligning with that certainty. Your decisions carry a different quality. The way you carry yourself shifts. The results you produce begin changing, not because the world suddenly became more cooperative, but because you became more aligned internally with what you were pursuing. Most people reverse this order entirely and then wonder why nothing is working. They wait for external results to arrive before they allow themselves to believe. They wait for the evidence before they commit. But that approach is fundamentally backwards. The most powerful achievers in every field and every era do not wait for proof. They create it by holding the belief internally until it becomes more familiar to them than the experience of falling short. They maintain that internal certainty with such consistency that it eventually commands every thought, every action, and every decision they make. And over time, the world adjusts to reflect what they have already accepted as real inside themselves. From this moment forward, think in alignment with what you are committed to achieving, rather than in alignment with what you have been trained to fear. Hold the image of the success you are building with such clarity and such emotional intensity that it becomes the primary reality your entire being responds to. Do not allow temporary conditions or short-term setbacks to create blur in a vision that must remain sharp, regardless of what is happening around it. Strengthen your belief through daily repetition until it operates at a volume that is louder than your entire environment. Focus your mind with such sustained intensity that the momentum it generates carries you through every obstacle that has ever stopped a less committed version of you. Build your success in the silence of your inner world, through focus, through repetition, through the unshakable internal vision that knows before the world can see it what is being constructed. Then go live the life that vision has already claimed as yours. You must train your mind like a soldier who understands with complete clarity that the battlefield is internal and that victory or defeat is determined there before a single external result has appeared. Zero tolerance for doubt, zero tolerance for fear, zero tolerance for confusion, because your mind is the field on which every war that has ever mattered to your life has been fought. Every thought entering that field is either a weapon serving your mission or a weakness compromising it. You cannot afford thoughts that make you smaller, slower, less focused, or less capable. Not when everything you are building depends on the quality of the thinking you bring to it every single day. Most people are not ultimately defeated by the difficulties life delivers to them. They are defeated by their own thinking long before life has had any opportunity to test them. They disqualify themselves before the attempt through the invisible war of self-defeating thought, fought entirely in the privacy of their own minds. They sabotage themselves with scenarios that have not happened and fears that exist only in projection, and stories from the past that they replay as though repetition will somehow produce a different emotional result. That is mental weakness in its most costly form, and it must be eliminated with total commitment. You must train your mind before the challenge arrives, not while you are already submerged in it. Mental strength is not a quality that appears spontaneously in the moment you need it most. It is built through repetition in the moments before that test arrives. It is forged through the daily discipline of choosing correct thought even when incorrect thought would be significantly easier to accept. Just as the body develops strength only through resistance applied consistently over time, the mind develops the capacity to dominate only through the repeated practice of refusing to accept weakness as its operating standard. Welcome the doubt when it arrives, but do not give it a residence. Welcome the fear, but do not allow it to assume authority over your decisions. Welcome the confusion as the natural predecessor of the clarity that disciplined thought will produce. Observe each of these as signals and then override them with direction. The moment you entertain doubt beyond its initial arrival, it multiplies. The moment fear is permitted to speak at length in your inner world, it begins to shout. The moment confusion sets in without challenge, its paralysis deepens. Zero tolerance is the standard. You do not negotiate with these forces. You train them out through the relentless repetition of thinking that chooses power over weakness every single time the choice presents itself. The code is this: train your mind to remain completely calm when the pressure increases. Train it to stay focused with full precision when chaos is operating in every direction. Train it to remain unshakable when everything in the environment is designed to produce instability. The people who rise to levels that the world considers extraordinary are not the ones who were spared from discomfort. They are the ones who train themselves specifically to stay centered in the middle of it. You must become so absolutely clear on your purpose and so completely certain of your direction that no storm arriving from outside can move you off the course you have deliberately set. Decide right now that your vision is more powerful than any fear that has ever tried to negotiate with it, more real and immediate than any doubt that has ever suggested a different direction, more dominant than any distraction that has ever tried to claim the attention your mission requires. The world will not hand you what you are capable of building. It will test whether you actually believe in it. It will challenge the depth of your commitment when commitment is most expensive to maintain. It will tempt you repeatedly to accept less than what you were built for. But the training you have built into your thinking will carry you through every one of those tests. Your mental toughness will make excuses impossible to sustain. Your clarity of focus will make mediocrity incompatible with who you have decided to become. And the relentless discipline of your correct thinking will make you genuinely and permanently unstoppable. Correct thinking transforms desire into destiny and becomes the master key to every achievement your life is capable of producing. Without it, desire remains a dream suspended in fog, never coming close enough to touch. With it, you gain complete command over the invisible forces that are shaping your life at every moment. Your thoughts are blueprints. What you hold in your mind with consistency and emotional intensity eventually shows up in the physical reality of your life. Every product ever created, every structure ever built, every idea ever converted into something real and lasting was first nothing more than a thought. a thought held with focus and with the emotional intensity of genuine belief, a thought that was protected and repeated and refused to be surrendered in spite of every argument the world offered for letting it go. The same principle operates in your life with the same precision it has always operated in every life throughout all of human history. If you think in harmony with what you intend to create, your actions align, your decisions reflect that intention, your behavior shifts in ways that produce the results you have been thinking toward. Most people say with genuine conviction that they want success, but spend the entirety of their daily inner conversation thinking thoughts of limitation, of unworthiness, of comparison to people further along, and of fear about all the ways their attempt might fall short. That gap between what they say they want and what their thinking actually reflects is what destroys the results they claim to be working toward. That contradiction is what keeps progress locked behind invisible walls. You must eliminate it. You must bring your thinking into complete harmony with your highest intention. Not partial harmony, not harmony on some days when the conditions are favorable. Complete harmony. No more divided energy, no more entertaining the mental options that undermine the belief required to reach the outcome you have committed to. Decide with full clarity what you are building and then construct a fortress of thought around it that no doubt can breach. You do not get what you want in this life. You get what you are mentally prepared for, and nothing more. And when your mind is prepared with the thoroughness of a soldier who has left nothing to chance, there is nothing on this earth capable of stopping what you have decided to become. Your thoughts are your responsibility, your weapon, and your most direct path to everything you were created to build. Choose them like your life depends on it, because from this moment forward, and for every moment that follows, it does. Think with precision, think with purpose, think with the full and uncompromising power of a mind that has finally and completely decided to think correctly. And watch as the impossible bends completely to the will of everything you have now become.